And now for something completely different. I'm going to show you a short movie. Oops. So, it's very short. Again, yeah. No, it's the first time it's failed.
Explain the actual process of fusion and the theory.
Yes. This is the apparatus. And very simply, when positively charged neurons are attracted to the palladium cathode, they cram together, millions and millions of them inside the cathode, getting closer and closer, and they fuse. And they create energy in the form of helium.
But I read somewhere that the experiment could be replicated. So, how do we know it works?
Well, we don't. Not yet.
So why is it that I've shown you this movie? It's a movie from 1997, The Saint, with Val Kilmer. It made about $170 million at the box office. Is it because one of the Reuben Fellows has discovered at last the secrets of cold fusion? It's not. Somebody said yes. No? At least as of yesterday, nobody had. And it's not because of that. It's to see whether you have noticed that this particular movie was actually shot in this very dining hall. So you can see there, still from the movie, you can recognize the vaulted ceiling. You can see the chemistry benches that used to be in here, as I say, in the late 20th century. And so this was an inorganic chemistry teaching lab. It was actually been in use as a chemistry lab since 1878. And now, of course, I hope you've been able to enjoy it as our dining hall here as a 21st century college. Now, in order to explain how we arrive at being in this dining hall, enjoying this lovely food tonight, I'm going to take you through a brief history of Reuben College in pictures. So it goes back, the story goes back about 5 years ago. In fact, just over 5 years ago, there was a debate in the Sheldonian, what we call a congregation debate. For those of you who are not from Oxford, congregation is effectively the Don's Parliament. And there are motions for and against the setting up of what was known then as Parks College. In all, including the debate as to whether we should be assigned buildings, it took about 3 hours. And at the end of the debate on whether there should be a new graded college or not, a vote was taken. Professor Dame Louise Richardson was the Vice Chancellor, was in the chair. There's about half an hour whilst the votes were counted, and the numbers are firmly imprinted on my neurons. 201 in favour, 130 against. So it wasn't quite 52-48. It went the right way for a start, and it's about 61-39. By then, some of the opponents left, and the vote on the buildings to be allocated to Reuben, then Parks College, took place afterwards, and that was 150 versus 67, which is 69% to 31%. And the buildings that were allocated to us are the buildings that you see there on a kind of drone picture. We are in the inorganic chemistry lab, which is the easternmost part of the college. So this runs from east to west. So inorganic chemistry is 1878. Then you have the Abbott's Kitchen, where we had the drinks, which is 1860. The new link area that we all came through, linking the chemistry buildings to the Jackson Wing, and that's 1901. And then the newest part of it is the addition that was built in 1934, the Worthington Wing. And those are the buildings that were allocated in 2019 to the college. The Jackson building, his sketch is a wonderful building by somebody who's sometimes called Oxford's Jackson. He was a famous architect at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. He built the Bridge of Sighs at Hertford College. He built the examination schools. And so there's plenty of his work around Oxford, including this wonderful Jackson building, as it's now called, which was where the science library was first housed. And on here you can see where you went up, the staircase here, the marble staircase is at that end, and you can see the 1860 Abbott's Kitchen here. The library is now moved to the top floor. The college occupies the ground floor and the first floor, but we're part of a sandwich, because below us, and just here, and that lawn has been used for other purposes recently. Underneath that lawn, there are the university's collections, which are being brought back from various places and housed within Oxford, so that they could be used in the collections teaching and research centre, which is also in the basement below the college. So the college is the sandwich, the meat, if you will, between the library above us and underneath us, the museum's collections. And that project to bring the collections and house them underneath the college, underneath the lawn in front of the Museum of Natural History, I believe is the first time that the 4 university museums have worked together on a project. The Worthington building here was an addition in 1934. And the picture that you see on the right was the head librarian's office, which is now the president's office, and I do assure you that it is not as cluttered now as it was then. And finally, the building in which we are at the moment, on the left, which is the inorganic chemistry teaching lab, and we are at the moment here. The windows that you can see here are the windows on my right, looking onto the other chemistry buildings through the windows. And finally, as I've already mentioned, the 1860 Abbott's Kitchen. So, the congregation debate, Parks College became the university's 39th college, and in summer 2019, with the backing of the Vice-Chancellor, I was able to make the first 4 appointments, including a very important appointment, the senior tutor who's here tonight, and she was Dr. Caroline Mawson, initially on secondment from Wadham College. And this was a feature of what happened in getting this college to come into being. Not only did we have support from the Central University through the Vice-Chancellor and the Pro-Vice-Chancellors, but many of the colleges helped out in different ways. And Wadham College were happy to, at first, share their very experienced senior tutor with us, and Reuben College could not have been built without an experienced senior tutor. So I'm very grateful to Wadham College. Sorry, Caroline, there'll be further embarrassment later on. And so having appointed the senior tutor, a couple of fellows and so on, we then went into the process for appointing the first set of fellows. Now you'll recognize those dates, of course, February to June 2020. We appointed the Cellular Life Fellows, so fellows with a university appointment in the Medical Sciences Division, mostly, during latter part of January and the early part of February. So those interviews were actually held in person, and there's one fellow that I will mention who was interviewed during that time while she was very busy doing something else. We then moved on to appoint fellows in AI and machine learning and fellows in environmental change. So those were the 3 founding themes of the college. And those 3 founding themes are reflected in the college crest, which was effectively my summer project after the lockdown. So, if I could take you through that. Cellular life is those two annulates in heraldry. Then you have environmental change, which is green earth, green energy, blue sea. So it only left AI and machine learning. So how could I possibly get AI machine learning into a college crest? Well, as I'm sure you all know, all computer languages are abstractions of binary codes. And therefore, the idea was to try and shoehorn a binary code into the college crest. And my first thought was that we should have our foundation year in our crest, 2019, but I'm sure you'll all be able to tell me that that would require 11 bits, 11 ones and noughts, probably too many to hide within the college crest. So instead, I went for number 39, because in 500 years' time, Reuben College will still be the 39th college, even when there are 50, 60 Oxford colleges. So if you take the ermine spot as the symbol for a 1, so here's a ermine spot on the left, and if you read from left to right and top to bottom, 1, and the annulates now become zeros, so 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1 is 39 in binary code. And so Reuben College is very proud, the first 21st century college in both Oxford and Cambridge, and the only one to have a binary code in its crest. So we had 21 fellows, summer 2020. It's actually very difficult to get a picture of our fellows. They're not all there, but there are most of our fellows were there on an occasion earlier on this year in the Abbott's Kitchen. Of course, they're all dotted around. I'm sure you've been talking to them during dinner. But the important thing to note from that picture is that we only remained with 3 themes for a very short time. Very quickly, we decided we needed a 4th theme because although we are in the science area, we are not, repeat not, a science college. There isn't a science college in Oxford. Even though the Chancellor might like to claim it, there isn't a politics college, even though from time to time Balliol has claimed that particular title. Colleges have all subjects represented within them. So we elected initially a set of philosophers from the Humanities Division University to be the fellows in our ethics and values theme. And just in the last 2 weeks, we've elected our first 2 associate professors from the law faculty to come and join the ethics and values theme. In addition to that, we have 2 strategic areas. One, innovation and entrepreneurship, because a lot of our fellows are very entrepreneurial and we want to encourage that in our students. If you think about Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, they were students when they set up their companies. So we are very supportive of students, as you'll see from a later slide, who are interested in adding innovation. As our Vice-Chancellor now tells us, the university is not just research teaching, it is also innovation, and that's very much represented in Reuben College. And finally, and we think this is very important, we need to engage with the public at large. So public engagement with research is a very important theme of the college, and we have fellows who are PER fellows, public engagement research fellows. So going back to the history, we had appointed our first fellows by June 2020, and then this absolute key date, and I've just taken a copy of the announcement from the university on the website, which is, if you think about it, just under 4 years ago, that we had this amazing £80 million donation from the Reuben Foundation, which has been transformative for the college. And as it says there, it meant that we were able to change the name of the college from Parks College to Reuben College.
This is a statement of confidence in Oxford, a statement with confidence in the power of research to solve societal problems. And above all, it's a statement of confidence in the future.
So what that represents is the fact that the Vice-Chancellor at the time, Dame Louise Richardson, with Liesl Elder, the Chief Development Officer, who I'm glad is here tonight, had been talking to the Reuben Foundation, and we were remarking upon this over dinner during our table. The negotiations went really quickly because it's actually very easy to work with the Reuben Foundation. And Liesl knew the Reuben Foundation from the fact, as was mentioned in Lisa's speech, from 2012, they had been already funding Reuben scholarships for undergraduates, disadvantaged undergraduate students. So there was already a relationship between the Development Office and the Reuben Foundation, and that was built up in the negotiations that then happened in the early part of 2020 with a final visit, and you'll recognize Lisa on the right here, with her son, and the other trustee from the Reuben Foundation, Richard Stone, came to visit us on the 4th of June 2020. Now, I don't know if you remember what May 2020 was like. They arrived in Banbury Road. I think it was the first time that Liesl told me she had left her front door to walk all the way down the Banbury Road to come and meet with the Reuben family and me. And we walked from Banbury Road to here. We could have walked with our eyes shut because there were no cars. This was just after national lockdown had stopped. It was eerily quiet, nobody about, no cars. And we walked here and we walked up to the marble staircase in the Jackson building that you see there. And from the way that Lisa and Richard reacted, I could see that we were very close to clinching the deal. And indeed, if I tell you 4th of June 2020, it was announced on the 1st of July, the gift agreement was really easy to do, and so we are extremely thankful not only for the endowment but for the way it is possible to work with the Reuben Foundation. So thank you very much from all of us. So that was a heartfelt thank you from me as president, from the fellows who were clapping particularly loudly, and the students, but the university also was very keen, because this is an extraordinary gift, the size of the endowment of the college. So the Chancellor's Court of Benefactors admits people who've made remarkable gifts to the university, and this happened in October 2021. And you see David and Simon Reuben there in their beautiful robes as members of the Chancellor's Court, and a picture on the left with more members of the family, again Lisa and Joyce Reuben joining David and Simon with the Chancellor and Vice-Chancellor. And that was just the first step, and in the second step, the highest distinction that the university can award is the Sheldon Medal, and that took place in October 2022 when David and Simon jointly were awarded the Sheldon Medal, and the names of the family members were written on the Clarendon Arch. Again, a very happy occasion that particular evening. So what that enabled us to do was to proceed with confidence to what really has been quite a tough project, which is the building refurbishment. That has lasted from early to mid-2020, slowed down by COVID, slowed down by the Ukraine war and the impact of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine on the construction industry. And there's one particular word about which I have nightmares. It's a word beginning with A, and that word is asbestos. And I used to say that we removed 672 tons of asbestos contaminated material from these buildings. In fact, we had an architect come and give one of the Tuesday night talks in this dining hall on Tuesday this week, and she updated the figure from 672 to 800. 800 tons of asbestos contaminated material have been removed from the buildings that you saw. And in addition, because this was a chemistry lab, and chemists are not particularly tidy when they do their experiments, we've removed, I am told, 45 different types of chemicals, including some rare earth elements, apparently, if I'm right, and 4 pints of mercury before we could open this. So you can see asbestech.com, an asbestos decontamination company that was parked out there for, well, many months, probably a year and a half in total. But if you do that, what it allowed, this takes you more or less from what appeared in the 1997 movie with the fume cupboards at the back that you can see. Then some work to remove what was there with the fume cupboards still there at the back. Then most of the chemicals having been removed from the floor and the ceiling below having been sorted out. We're getting somewhere, and finally, this is where we are tonight. But it shows you the stages of what had to be done in order to convert this 1878 chemistry lab into a dining hall fit for purpose for a 21st century college. I'm going to show you a couple of other buildings. I'm not going to go through all the other buildings, but just to illustrate, the Abbott's Kitchen, this is underneath where we were for drinks, was the library's computing lab. That's what it looked like before the building project started. And then it had to be cleared. But of course, because this was built in 1860 and buildings in the 19th century and the 20th century had lots of asbestos in them, because in those days asbestos was installed in buildings because it was a fire retardant material. So this is stripped down to, with all the computers removed and so on. But there has to be further stripping to be done. If you look closely, and I hope you can see it on the auxiliary screens if you're sitting over there, you can see the brickwork. So all the asbestos-containing plaster had to be removed. You have to go down to the brickwork. And then, having done that, or contractors and subcontractors doing it, you start replastering. Because it's a heritage building, it has to be restored as was. So heritage lime plastering. And finally, and one or two of you were able to see, and I'm very happy to take you after dinner if you want to, we have this fantastic multi-purpose 21st century lecture theatre, up to 50 people. We've had people from within Reuben College, other people within the university come and run seminars, workshops here. It's got all the facilities you need to in order to run a 21st century meeting. The Jackson Building, 1901, just the same. If you look very closely, you can see the walls stripped back to the brickwork as well. Asbestos in the ceiling as well. That's why you can't see the ceiling, because work had to be done to remove the asbestos from that. Some way forward on the middle picture, and then this is what it looks like as our common room, which in a graduate college is shared between the fellows and the students. So I've talked about buildings, but of course the whole college raison d'être is its students. And in October 2021, we welcomed our first cohort of 120 students. And on the 13th of October 2021, because the buildings were not ready, this lecture took place in the Natural History Museum, the inaugural lecture. And there are two people, if you read the Daily Mail, you'll be able to recognize Professor Tess Lamb, or even if you don't, because Tess on there was one of those appointed in January 2020 as a fellow of Reuben College, when she'd just begun, about 2 or 3 weeks before, working on a new project. And that new project was the design of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, which has saved millions of lives in the world. So we were extremely fortunate. We didn't know at the time when we appointed Tess that she would go on to greater things, but Tess and Sarah Gilbert are the co-designers of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. Andy Pollard on the right, now Sir Andrew Pollard was the principal investigator of the randomized controlled trial that showed the efficacy of the vaccine. I think this is such a wonderful global achievement that it deserves a round of applause. Three days after the inaugural lecture, matriculation day for our first cohort of students. And what is amazing is how quickly even completely new students in a completely new college learn their traditions. So you have the pictures in front of the Radcliffe camera, pictures after coming out of the Sheldonian, and of course very quickly also worked out that you finished the day in a pub near you somewhere. So this is our students enjoying a well-deserved drink after formally becoming members of the university on the 16th of October 21. But of course, our building project was happening all the time, but the buildings were not ready because of all the issues that we had. And here we have to salute Linacre College. We owe a huge debt of gratitude to Linacre College, whose principal is here tonight, because we didn't have any buildings. We had accommodation in Farndon Court, Farndon Road, the angle of Farndon Road and Woodstock Road, but we didn't have a bar, we didn't have a common room, we didn't have a library, we didn't have a dining hall. And Linacre made it possible for that first cohort to arrive, and we are tremendously grateful, Nick, for all that Linacre did for those first 2 years. And there's one other person, sorry, that I'll go back because I do want to single out this other person there, close to camera. She's here tonight. So one of the issues that you have when you set up a brand new college, brand new students, there's no common room. There are no students, there's no president of the common room because the students are just about to arrive. There's no secretary of the common room. There's no treasurer of the common room. And so the senior tutor came up with this brilliant idea to try and see whether the vice president for graduate students in the Oxford University Student Union might be our founding graduate common room president. And she agreed and asked Lauren in our common room in Linacre, very close to the camera, and she's here tonight, Lauren Bolts. I did warn her that I was going to embarrass her when she arrived tonight, and I've delivered on that. Now, formal hall in Linacre, so this is some of our fellows. This is Professor Leigh Clifton with some of the fellows before going into formal hall in Linacre College. Then we go off to have a cup of coffee and a picture after dinner in that particular room in Linacre College, and then people quite happy at the end of dinner. Actually, if I ask you to say who the three fellows are amongst that little happy group after a lovely formal dinner, you probably wouldn't be able to tell me. But I do assure you there are three fellows amongst that group of happy people after a very nice formal dinner at Linacre College. But I want to come now to what is probably the marquee event for Reuben College, which is Dining with Dinosaurs. So once a week, we escaped to the Museum of Natural History. There was a lecture from 6 to 7 in their lecture theatre on the first floor, and then the students come back and sit at those tables that you can see there amongst the dinosaurs. Over the two courses, they would debate questions raised by the talk. And each table elects a rapporteur. And as you can see here, the rapporteur comes up to the lectern and shares what their own table has discussed that evening with the rest of the audience. So academic discussion, discussing the issues, interdisciplinarity, because often the talks are about topics that are not what the students are doing for their own research or their own masters. So interdisciplinary exchanges, rapporteurs bringing it back and sharing with everybody. And the final tradition on the right, the picture in front of a dinosaur with your table. And on this picture, we have Vishal Gulati, one of the members of our advisory board, with the students on his table. A tradition that we started 2 years ago, which has remained part of the college. And what happens once a term as well is the students take over. So instead of having an outside speaker, a group of students present their work to a generalist audience about presenting to students in completely different subjects and explaining what is exciting about their work. And this was the first time that we ran it in Trinity term, and it was the Trinity student takeover. So we had a wonderful first cohort of students who had this startup mentality. And almost immediately on the left, there was a mixed soccer team, if you're from the US, football team, if you're from Europe. And also our students took up rowing with a vengeance. And that was again facilitated by Lindenker College. So our students rowed with Lindenker College, and Lindenker College also has a few Nuffield College rowers with them, hence the 3 shields on the right. So lots of sporting activities from the start, but not just sporting. Very quickly, there was a college magazine called the Ruby. We're now on to the 3rd edition of the Ruby. And the one I like on the right as well is this idea that students from different countries would teach each other their language. So the Rubabel, a great name, was a language exchange. So if you were French and wanted to learn, I don't know, Spanish or German, you could come and teach somebody French, and somebody else would teach you German. So the Rubabel was a language exchange set up by the first cohort. Also agreed to raise some money for the 10 kilometers Tangan run, which raises funding for muscular dystrophy. And in our first year, because we only had 120 students, we had the highest percentage of runners. Not the greatest number of runners, because there are much bigger colleges with 600 or 700 students, but the number of runners that we had for the 120 that we had was the highest percentage, and a very red-looking president who staggered through the course and is having a lie down at the end. We also ran, very soon afterwards, our first conference, and that's because we're very international, as I already mentioned. 70% of our students are from outside the UK, many of them from low and middle income countries. So our first inaugural meeting of a global health conference took place in March 2023 on the topic of diagnostics. And because we didn't have anywhere to hold it, it was held at the Maison Française. It was opened by Ken Fleming, who was the first head of the Medical Sciences Division here, and had been the chair of the Lancet Commission on Diagnostics. And we have very close partnership on this with Oxford Nanopore, whose CEO, Dr. Gordon Sanghera, is absolutely passionate about developing technology for low and middle income countries. And our final event in September, as I said earlier, we want to encourage student entrepreneurship. We run a student entrepreneurship forum. Again, Vishal Gulati helped us to set that up. But it's not an event, as indeed the diagnostic conference, just for Reuben. It's Reuben putting on something for the rest of the university. So we had about 80 graduate students, a dozen or so from Reuben, the others from other colleges. They heard about students who'd set up their own companies and they've been successful. They heard about VC funders from the UK and the US. They heard from Oxford University Innovation. They heard from Oxford Sciences Enterprise. And it was inspiring for them. There was plenty of opportunity to network, and on day 2 there was a pitching competition with some funding from the Reuben Foundation again, and we had a team of 2 female engineers that won the first prize and a team of MBAs from the business school that won the second prize. And this event, like the Diagnostic Conference, is now part of the calendar annually within Reuben College. Finally, we finally get there, October 2023. So 8 or 9 months ago, we finally moved into our buildings. We transferred Dining with Dinosaurs from the University Museum of Natural History to this dining hall. This is actually a picture of the very first one. I had a go, I don't know how successful it was, at explaining to our students, who, as I say, come from all sorts of backgrounds, only 5% of them do computer science, how large language models like ChatGPT really work. And I probably can say this without embarrassing my wife too much, who's a medieval historian. It was a 30-minute talk, and I only lost her after 20 minutes. So that was the best praise I had for the talk. On the right, you have the 4 rapporteurs, one of our philosophy students here, coming back. There are too many tables to have rapporteurs from each table, so we run a random number generator to select the tables, and that's a dinosaur race on the screen with everybody banging on their tables, and that selects who comes up and reports on their discussions. Former hall is very much like tonight, so I don't need to say too much, except what you can see on the picture. You have the vice president on the right of the picture, and on her right, our architect, Christine Kwong, who has done a fantastic work of renovating these buildings. I wanted a picture of her because I wanted us to be able to say thank you again for the wonderful work that you've done, Christine. But the dining hall isn't used just for dinners, it's also used for events. There's a competition run by the university called All Innovate, when students who are interested in entrepreneurship come and pitch ideas. There were 12 prizes awarded. Because the Pro VC for Innovation, Chas Buntra, was away that day, I was asked to present the prizes, and it's complete serendipity that 4 of the winners were students from Reuben College that you can see there. I had nothing to do with it. Very much like the Vice Chancellor, I came in the last 10 minutes, I was asked, who do I give the prizes to? And to my surprise, well, maybe not, because we have very entrepreneurial students. 4 of the prize winners were from Reuben College. And the last thing in the calendar this year is opening night in February of our bar below. Now, when I was head of engineering, I always used to go, when I gave talks about my department, engineering, before I gave the talk, I would turn to the audience and say, what do you know engineering for? And invariably, it was, well, you've got the ugliest building in Oxford. Those of you from Oxford probably realize there's a degree of truth that the Tom building is the ugliest building in Oxford, possibly. And I said, well, I'm going to do my best to change that whilst I'm head of department. When I gave talks about parks or Reuben College, I would say, tell me what you know Reuben College for. And invariably it was, you're the college where the dining hall is going to be above a radioactive chemistry lab. And indeed that was true. This was what was underneath this dining hall until about 18 months ago. It's Véronique Gouverneur's lab. It's Véronique Gouverneur, who is a fellow of the Royal Society, does extraordinary work on fluorine-18 as radioactive isotopes for medical imaging, positron emission tomography, all developed in that lab. We managed to get her some new space in the Ronda Porter building elsewhere in the science area with our own cyclotron to produce the isotopes. And so after further funding, very generous funding on top of their original endowment from the Reuben Foundation, this is what it looks like. And I invite you, if you have time afterwards, to come and have a look at the David and Simon Reuben bar downstairs. Finally, only about a month ago, we had our first boats on the river, no longer rowing with Lineker. Serendipity, we took on St. Bennett's Hall's boats and were able to have both top left women's 8, on the right men's 8, and the men went up 3 places in summer 8s and the women went up 5 8s in summer 8s. And they were able to row with Reuben blades and Reuben colours. That's 2 years after starting rowing in college, which is a fantastic achievement. So that's what's happened in the last academic year. Just to finish, I would like to think about why it is we've been able to go at extraordinary speed and achieve what the fellows and students here have been able to achieve during that time. And the first thing I would like to say is the extraordinary support from the Reuben Foundation. Because the Reuben family didn't just endow the college back in June 2020, they've continued to be involved in the college. And it's wonderful either to welcome them here or to go and see them in London or elsewhere and to talk about the college because they really know about the college. So again, on the left, you've got Richard Stone and Lisa Reuben, the 2 trustees of the Reuben Foundation. They saw the various stages of the work in this dining hall, and you have David and Simon Reuben as well on the right in the dining hall when it was safe. We'd removed enough mercury to be able to welcome them in, so it was quite safe to come in, and they were involved at all stages. And not only involved out of interest, but when they found out there were issues with the asbestos, because they're the world experts in property development, they actually contributed financially to the asbestos mitigation, above and beyond the original endowment of the college. So that's my first reason why we've been able to do what we've been able to do in the last 5 years. The second reason, I'm going to embarrass two people. I think the two most important people in college. I'm sure that other heads of house present here tonight would say that unless you got the bursar and the senior tutor right in the college, your life as a head of house is going to be a nightmare. So we have our senior tutor, Karen Mawson, and our bursar, Stephen Purbrick, here. And before you applaud them, one more picture. They were involved in every stage of the even though they're smiling, they lived through all the pain of the refurbishment and all the problems. But as I said to you, you cannot do this without having the right bursar and the right senior tutor in college. So will you please join me in thanking them for what they've done? And last but not least, the students. Now, we had the first GCR president. These are the GCR executive, president, treasurer, VP of academic affairs, etc. The night that we opened the bar in February 2023. So this is the graduate common room executive from April 2023 till Easter 2024. And they were absolutely fantastic because, for example, we were meant to have a BOP at the end of our first term, very important in the life of a college. It couldn't happen, but our GCR executive was fantastic in understanding the reasons why we couldn't do these things, communicating them to the rest of the college, and making sure that we all went forward together, united fellows and students, and we couldn't have done all the things that we've done through all the difficulties we've had without a committed graduate common room executive. So I'd like you also to give them a round of applause. And my final slide, just to try and capture the essence of what Reuben College is. And I've got two quotations separated by 150 years. And the first one, if you substitute college or university, a place where inquiry is pushed forward by the collision of mind with mind and knowledge with knowledge. And that's what happens on Tuesday nights here at Dinner with Dinosaurs. Part of our academic program. It's free to our students, and this is what happens. Collisions of young minds with older minds, knowledge with knowledge, and so on. If I tell you this is a quote from 1875, 150 years ago, I'm sure most of you will be able to work out that this is part of the idea of a university by John Henry Newman. The second below is more recent. It's 2 days old. So if you remember, I used to ask, what is Reuben College known for? So this time I asked ChatGPT 4.0. What is Reuben College known for? And that's what it came up with. Reuben College aims to create a dynamic and supportive environment that encourages interdisciplinary collaboration. And both John Henry Newman and ChatGPT 4.0 agree. So I think it's wonderful to have these two quotations 150 years apart to capture the essence of Reuben College. Thank you very much.